And welcome back to a late but sure to be great rendition of Beerfield Fantasy Football. I am your host at Hot BFF with two P's, as always, joined by my co-host from Springfield, Illinois, the Ray BFF with two F's. Dan, what is up?
Oh, just running late, just threw around a disc golf. So feeling pretty good.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling good. You got to relax a little bit with some disc golf, so that was good. I went back to work for the first day after spending a week at a conference on the beach, so not quite as fun. No pool breaks today, unfortunately speaking. So it's good to be back, though. We're happy that you all listen to us. When you listen to us, you can follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, Untapped at BeerfieldFF, Facebook, YouTube, Beerfield Fantasy Football. I forgot how to talk for a second. We also have merch that you can hit us up and buy and stuff. And there's a Patreon out there someplace. You can email us for that information. Before we get started here, I do have a bit of an announcement to make. This is one of my drunk ideas that once I committed to, got to do it. So,
yes.
Got a question for you, Dan. Do you like helping kids with cancer?
The correct and only answer is yes. Yes, I do.
Do you like the idea of me being put through the table by a professional wrestler?
Again, there's only one correct answer, and that's yes. Yes, I do.
I think our listeners would absolutely love that. So, Beerfield Fantasy Football, in conjunction with Wrestling for a Cure, has partnered, and by partner, I mean we're doing a fundraiser for them to support St. Jude's. So, what is Wrestling for a Cure? Quick overview. Wrestling for a Cure is a organization, not-for-profit, that started in, for lack of a better term, that started in my hometown of Springfield, Illinois, Dan's adopted hometown of Springfield, Illinois, that is all of the local wrestling promotions coming together to put on a show to support St. Jude's. They run basically a year's worth of fundraisers. They do collections at local businesses. They do all sorts of Facebook challenges to help raise money. And over the last couple of years have raised, I don't have the running total offhand, but it's thousands and thousands of dollars. So what they've agreed to do is if our listeners, and there are a lot of you that listen or follow the show or whatever, can raise $500, which is like all of you that follow us on Twitter or listen to the show donating 20 cents. So if you guys can raise $500 for Wrestling for a Cure, they have agreed to let Gulf Coast champion and personal friend of mine, Mac Daddy Duds, put me through a table. So the link to make that donation is in the YouTube description. It'll be tweeted out on Twitter. If you would like to try to follow along with this, it is www.gofundme.com/ that's the one that looks like it's a guy leaning forward, hopper-goes-through-a-table-for-St. Got all that? Great. So go drop a donation. And if you're asking how will you see that, we'll get a video of it up on our YouTube channel. But it's a way for you, the listeners, to get revenge if you don't like my take and to help out some kids in need. So be sure to check that out. We'll be hyping it for, I believe, the next 3 weeks on this show. So again, GoFundMe.com / hopper-goes-through-a-table-for-St. Jude. $500 is our goal. So now that you know how you can see me put through a table and help some kids in need, we got a show to do. So today we're previewing the AFC South. This was one of the more interesting divisions I think we did. I mean, the Colts and Texans were pretty easy, but the Jaguars and Titans were a completely different story, at least for me.
The Jaguars were a fucking nightmare. The Titans were okay. It's just Jacksonville is... it still gives me nightmares.
I texted you cussing about Jacksonville.
Yes, they're not fun. We'll just say that.
Nope, they're not fun, so we'll get into that in just a minute. But as always, first, we need to tell you what's fueling us on today's show.
Beer review.
One day I will not mess that up. I swear one day I will not mess that up. I still blame Nick for leaving.
I know.
It just says beer at the front. We changed the name of the segment. There we go.
What's fueling Beerfield?
All right, Dan, what are you drinking on today?
I am drinking on Altex Kentucky wheat. It's a barrel aged wheat and tequila barrels with lime added to it. It's a beer that I got for free from work because they dropped it off at the wrong place.
That-
And
that's
the other
always
liquor store
nice.
didn't pick it up, so we just kept it for free. So I brought it home.
That is always nice.
Yes.
Yeah, free beer is the best beer. Seems like you get a decent amount of that.
Yes.
So I have one of our favorite breweries that we haven't had on in a while. I am drinking Teddy Bear Kisses from Upland Brewing out of
Ooh,
Bloomington,
nice.
Indiana. It's a cocoa-aged Russian Imperial Stout, checking in at 10%. I've had this since this was bottled in October, so we're going on, well, let's do some math here, about 8 months aged. So felt it was time to crack it open and give her a shot before it gets too hot out to even drink stouts. So we will give you a full review of these beers about midway through the previews. And with that being said, we got some news to talk about.
News.
All right, starting it off in good news. This should technically be injury news, but I think this is the most notable thing we have. Cam Newton has resumed throwing a regulation-sized football. So what that means is, one, he's officially been cleared to throw, but two, it puts him ahead of where Andrew Luck was coming off of his shoulder surgery, I believe, 2 years ago.
Yes.
So any concerns I had about Cam Newton not being ready for the season, or those rumors that were being kicked around last year that he would miss part of the year, those are gone for me. If he's throwing a regulation-sized football and is cleared in June, I have no concerns about him being ready by the time the year starts.
No, he'll be fine. On a quick side note, we did talk, as we talked about putting Hopper through a table and GoFundMe. I did tweet out a link on my page and on the show page for those out there that want to go there. That's why I was half paying attention.
Yep, and those will be coming throughout the week. I'm going to schedule them through Hootsuite. We'll get them shared out through our normal podcast networks and our normal share people and everything. That way you guys don't miss that opportunity. And again,
Perfect.
like I said, 50 cents to $1 from each of you should more than clear it.
Yes.
So, moving back to the news, Colts quarterback and future superstar Chad Kelly has been suspended 2 games for his home invasion incident. Just got to get that out there. For those of you that don't
Chad
remember,
Kelly.
he randomly walked into a house after Von Miller's Halloween party, sat down on a couch with a family, which was rather startling to them because they have no idea who Chad Kelly was, and then got beaten with a vacuum tube. Still hilarious.
He is like the poster child for this podcast.
He kind of is, minus the
is.
hard drugs.
Well, minus the hard drugs.
Minus
obviously.
Duke Johnson reported for minicamp on Monday. It had been reported that he was a holdout candidate after he had requested several trades, but he is in the house.
He wants to be traded. I think all the awkward conversations aside, I would love to see him move on, but I think with Chris Hunt being suspended, he won't be.
Nope, I agree with that. He's not going to be moved. They've been steadfast. He's not going to be moved, and it doesn't look like he's going to hold out either.
Which is good for him.
Per Laura Bauer and Brooke Pryor of the Kansas City Star, Tyreek Hill's child abuse probe is no longer active. Now, it's important to note, there is precedent in the NFL for suspending a player without there being legal action taken. Zeke.
Yeah.
We've also seen those things get drug out. So my guess is though he should be back with the team come training camp, the situation is far from over.
And it's sad. I mean, yes, there's nothing found of him that he actually did something to his son. The fact that his son still has all the abuse done to him, whether it be done through neglect or just the fact that someone in the family did it, it's already sad enough.
Right.
I don't think the Chiefs are going to do anything about it unless they find some video evidence or some sort of acknowledgement that it happened from Hill himself. 8 games right now seems to be the guess at it that he'll get suspended for, but as you just said, as we saw with Zeke, that could get dragged out into the season.
Well, that is the one thing that seems to be missing from all of this is that it's video evidence. Zeke had video evidence, and Kareem Hunt, there was video evidence. Every horrible thing that's happened, there's been video. There's not video of this, so it'll be interesting to see how the NFL reacts.
I agree.
On to some roster news. This is just for Dan. The Bears signed offensive lineman T.J. Clemmings.
I'm sorry.
Me too. He might not even make the team.
Let's hope not.
The Austin Safarian-Jenkins era is over in New England before it could ever really get started. They've granted him his release. He's taking a month off to focus on personal issues, has had a history of substance abuse and alcoholism.
There is a chance that they could bring him back, but right now, Matt LaCouse is the starter for week 1 through week 4.
Would appear that way. Jermaine Kearse has been reunited with Darrell Bevell in Detroit, so he'll serve as depth when Danny Amendola inevitably gets injured.
Yay.
The Jets have re-signed running back Bilal Powell, because what is dead may never die.
Apparently.
Robbie Gould is skipping 49ers mandatory minicamp, so the kicker holdout continues.
I'm surprised this isn't in the LML news.
It should be, but I already had like 3 things down there.
I know,
too.
that's true. I love Robbie Gould. I want him to prove a point and then be paid for it.
I do too, and you know what? He's been around long enough to do it.
Yeah.
In injury news, Ravens wide receiver Marquise Brown is targeting training camp to return from an offseason foot injury. Meanwhile, Miles Boykin should be returning at minicamp from a hamstring injury, and actually did return at minicamp from a hamstring injury, albeit limited.
Well, the Ravens are off to a great start with the receiving core.
Yep. Delaney Walker has been cleared for 7-on-7 drills, so as he makes his comeback, more on him later. Marquise Lee is expected to be sidelined at a training camp, more on him later. And interesting, Sonny Michel has not been spotted at Patriots practice since May 20th, and no reason has been given for his absence. So, and that's going on 2 weeks that Michel has just mysteriously been missing. Almost.
You got to think injury.
Yeah.
You have to.
Sorry, almost 3 weeks. So, yeah, you've got to think injury. You wonder if it's the knees again, and this is just looking good for Damian Harris.
This is
the
looking
oh
good
so
for all of my Damian Harris shares.
The oh so undervalued in rookie drafts.
Yes, very much so.
Had to get a drink of my beer there. All right. That being said, let's get to the laugh out loud portion of this segment, which is my personal favorite.
Laugh out loud news of the week.
Bucks coach Bruce Arian claims the Bucks secondary is, quote, totally fixed because they signed Carlton Davis and Vernon Hargraves. So start your wide receivers against the Bucks.
Yes.
That is not fixed, and they're going to be in a lot of shootouts.
Yeah. Not very good corners.
Yeah.
To say the least.
This is going to be the most shocking thing you've heard.
Wow.
A
It's just
white slot receiver in Adam Humphries had a chance to sign with the Patriots this offseason, but he passed on it.
I mean, he did sign with the Patriots minor league team, the Tennessee Titans.
He did. One of them.
One of the two.
They've got
minor
about
league teams. 4. Yeah, they do have about 4.
He did do that, but it's also not surprising that Belichick was pursuing that. Adrian Peterson has stated his goal is to run for 2,000 yards this season, to which I say it's good to have goals. That would be roughly a 950-yard increase over last year, with Darius Geis being back, the addition of Bryce Love and Chris Thompson.
Yeah, the last time he put lofty goals onto himself, I think he got hurt in like week 1 or 2. So
Yep, safe to say that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And in more shocking news, Ryan Finley, quote, looks bad at Bengals practice for the Athletics ball dinner. The same words were uttered by literally anybody that watched his film.
he is he got bailed out by Kelvin Harmon and the other receiver there.
Yeah.
One that you like, Terry McLaurin, I think his name is.
No, Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, that's right, Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, McLaurin was Ohio State.
Ohio State. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, Jacoby Myers. He did get bailed out a lot. We knew he had looked bad. When I don't like somebody in the pre-draft process, I almost love it when it comes up that they do indeed look bad.
it's like thank you for
Thank you for
letting me
validating
know that I
me.
was right.
Yeah, thank you for validating me, beat reporters. Thank you for validating me. All right, that's all I got for the Laugh Out Loud segment. Let's get to the meat and potatoes and hit a division preview.
Division preview.
All right. So let's go ahead and start with the Colts. And again, just an overview of how we do this. The must-own guys, for example, in this next coming up, Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton, DeAndre Hopkins. Probably not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about them. We'll kind of mention expectations, but you know what they're going to be. They're going to be drafted. They're going to have good years. They've been doing it long enough for you to know that. And we don't expect a significant change from the norm for them. Most of the time will be spent on guys we expect to have an increase, a fall off, that are going to be kind of in that murky second, third, fourth tier of players as we go ahead and try to break down some position battles and what to expect from people whose situations have drastically changed. So let's go ahead and start with the Colts. As I mentioned, Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton are the two must-owns. Any big takeaways there other than just it's more of the same from those two?
Luck is a top 3 quarterback for me. I think T.Y. Hilton, just with the Manning Paris Campbell, the re-addition of Jack Doyle, and then outside of Devin Funchess to it, I think his targets take a bit of a hit to it. But he should still be at worst a low wide receiver too.
Yeah, I had him at 140 targets actually.
Ooh.
Devin Funchess at 93, Paris Campbell coming in at 67, just because we've seen high-end wide receivers come in and not really produce a whole lot. I've got Andrew Luck throwing the ball 623 times, which is not that outrageous for him. But I don't see a fall-off for T.Y. Hilton at all. I've also got the tight ends at 96 and 86, as well as a healthy target volume for Nyheim Hines, and that isn't even using all of those 600-plus targets.
Things are being missed here. I may have done some calculations wrong. I got him at 606 attempts to it, as this offense should be run a little bit more, but not too far off from where you were. I got Hilton at 120 targets, so Funchess at 90, Paris at 68, and the tight ends at 87, 83.
So we're not that far off. We're about 15 total targets apart, I think.
Yeah. Wright wants to run this 2 tight end offense like he had in Philadelphia, so I do expect the tight ends to be of equal use.
Yep. Now, you did mention them running more, and I also agree with that. I think this team's going to be very, very offensively good. I've got the team itself projected to run just south of 1,100 plays, which is upper echelon for what you would expect a good offense to do. So I've also got Marlon Mack carrying the ball 234 times in just 13 games. So I do think that they're going to be ahead. I do think that they're going to run a decent amount. And given this division, the Texans games will be tough. The Titans usually don't give the Colts too much trouble. And I don't expect the Jaguars to be very good. And they don't have the toughest schedule. So,
yeah, I'm right there with you on Mac. I got him at 249 rushes on 14 games. So pretty much right in line where you were.
Yep, it's just a matter of if he's healthy, he's going to be very, very good. His juke rate was off the charts. All of his elusiveness ratings were off the charts. His efficiency was very, very good. It's just a matter of can he stay healthy. If he does, I think he's a lock for over that 230 carry mark, over 1,000 yards. I got him at 12 rush touchdowns as well because he was used a ton in the red zone and was effective at it.
Yeah, I got him there. I'm right with you pretty much everything. 249, 1096, 10 touchdowns, adding another receiving touchdown, makes his total 11 there. So
yeah,
I think if Matt can stay healthy, as you just said, I think he's locked for a top 24 finish, and I think he could be flirting with that high 2 finish, that 13 to 16 range.
Yep. And he's not the only back that has some value, albeit later. I think that Nyheim Hines, if Matt gets hurt, and with his receiving upside in any form of PPR, is a pretty good late-round pick as well.
I completely agree. And we got to see, at least later on in the season, that they were both used. I mean, Hines should always have his pass catching upside to him. Now they did add some more targets to that, so that may affect him there. But as you said, if Matt gets hurt, which we both expected to miss a couple games, he should have some flex value during those weeks.
Yep, and I've still got him at 86 targets, which is less than James White gets on a yearly basis. It's kind of around what Shane Verino was doing with the Giants.
I got him a little bit less, but that's because I expect the tight ends to be used a lot more, and I just expect more from the receiving core. So I got him at 71, not too much off though.
Yeah, I got the tight ends at a decent amount as well. I think I projected all but 21 targets when I did this. So
yeah.
Moving on to the wide receivers, we mentioned T.Y. Hilton already. Devin Funchess is kind of where I want to look at. I mean, the question I had posed was who's the wide receiver two, and does Campbell emerge? I think really we're looking at Devin Funchess to be the wide receiver two, and I've got him having a decent red zone impact.
I mean, I got him at 9 touchdowns. I expect him and Ebron to dominate that.
I do
And
too.
with how good this offense is going to be, just with the amount of I expect this team to be a top 3 red zone offense, which means a lot of opportunity for Funches. He's always been for a guy for as slow as he is, he's been kind of a deep threat for his, I got him at 12.4 yards per reception, which is good for a guy who moves as slow as he does.
It's because he can body guys out. I have him at 11.8, so I'm a little down on that for you, but that's also because they've got Campbell and T.Y. to stretch the field. I think Funchess is going to be able to work underneath a little bit more than he did in Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, I expect Campbell to play more of what we saw from T.Y. early on, and that's a lot of underneath routes and, use his yak ability to gain yards that way. But for Funches, it's just, can you get the targets to give him that wide receiver 2 to 3 finish that I think a lot of people are expecting from him.
Yep, and it's all about the touchdowns for him. I got him at 93 targets, but just 54 receptions, just under 650 yards. So, I mean, that's not going to be enough to be sexy in and of its own, but the 8 touchdowns is what's going to make him frustrating to own, but also finish better than the frustrations are going to be.
Yeah, he's going to be, you hope to play him when the touchdowns happen. I got him at 90 targets, 49 receptions, as you said. I got him at 608 yards. I don't expect him to be a monster on those non-touchdown weeks, but
no, I don't either. And
touchdowns will come. I thought like what Ebron was when Doyle was healthy last year.
Yep. So let's talk the tight ends, Doyle and Ebron. Jack Doyle's going to be back. How does that affect Eric Ebron? How do you see that working out?
It'll affect him in terms of his PPR points. I think we'll both see Ebron and Doyle use all over the field. Doyle was Luck's, a kind of safety blanket early on. I expect that to remain the same. I got the tight ends as a group scoring 15 touchdowns just because of what Frank Wright brought to that tight end core with Philadelphia. I expect that to kind of be the same here with 2 very well and capable tight ends, and both that complement each other very well, as what Trey Burton did for Zach Ertz.
Yep. I've got him at 14 touchdowns, so I'm right there with you. I do have Doyle out targeting Ebron by about 10. I think it's pretty even usage for those two, but Ebron with a large advantage in touchdowns.
I got Doyle missing a couple games. He's been nicked up the last couple of years, so that could happen on a per game basis. Doyle would out target Ebron in that sense, but
I think before last year, his low was 15 games, and I think he'd played 16 in like 3 out of 4 seasons since he's.
I know he was healthy early on. I think the last 2 ones is where he's been.
I think he was banged up the year before. I don't think he missed time though. Weirdly enough, I'd have to go vet that, but I'm pretty sure that.
Yeah,
I don't think he missed time, but I do remember him banged up. We've seen it with Dennis Pitta, and that is a concern.
Hip injuries are not a joke especially for tight ends, apparently.
Right. We have seen that as a concern. He is running routes. He is expected to come back healthy. But if he does miss time, obviously on those weak, Eric Ebron's going to be a must start.
Oh, yeah, easily.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on the Colts to talk about? That pretty much covers it for me. I think that, I don't think Jordan Wilkins has much of a role. I'm not really looking at anything behind the 3 wide receivers we casually mentioned.
No, I did talk about Chester Rogers, who could see some run early on over Paris Campbell. But, again, I don't expect that to happen either. Yeah,
I don't expect Rodgers or Campbell, other than in super deep leagues, for redraft to be ownable. Obviously, Campbell's still a good go-get at the end of your first round in Dynasty. But outside of that, Doyle and Ebron are both going to be good late-round tight ends. Take your pick, especially in PPR leagues. I'm leaning Doyle, otherwise Ebron. T.Y. Hilton is what he is. Marlon Mack is going to be a kind of second to third tier running back if he can stay healthy. Probably that high second tier if he's healthy.
Yep, I agree there.
All right, moving on to the Jaguars, and this was aggravating.
It's fucking gross.
I had Leonard Fournette as a must-own. I don't even know that I can stand by that, so let's just go ahead and start from the top. What are appropriate expectations for Nick Foles this year, given what's been put around him? Because he does not have the weapons he had in Philly.
it's not good. I mean, when you like he was tough to figure out because he was great to bad in Philly. He was okay elsewhere. I mean, he was bad in St. Louis. He would have been, I think, okay in Kansas City had he stayed healthy. Um, so it's just hard to pinpoint which Nick Foles you're going to get. He is paired back up again with
John DeFilippo.
with DiFlippio or whatever the fuck his name actually is. But I got him at only throwing the ball 513 times. I don't expect much from this offense as a whole. Just 21 touchdowns, 11 picks. He's going to be not like I'm not drafting him in redraft. He's obviously ownable and draftable in 2 QB super flex leagues, but I'm not expecting a lot from him.
I'm going to flip this around a little bit. He's going to be a streamer, and here's why. Because he's going to throw the ball 604 times. And why? Garbage time. It is the return of garbage time in Jacksonville. We've seen it with Blake Bortles.
So.
We've seen it with Blake Bortles. We've seen it with Doug Marrone. We've seen how it's going to happen. The defense is still relatively decent. I do have them kind of slowing down in the amount of plays ran, but they are going to be so far behind in a lot of these games. I think they're going to have to be playing catch up. They also lost TJ Yeldon, and Alfred Blue and Thomas Rawls are not what you want to have behind Leonard Fournette. I don't expect the rushing game to be very efficient. I think they're going to have to lean on Nick Foles, which has adverse effects too. I have him throwing the ball 604 times. I also have him completing passes at about 8% less than he was in Philadelphia his last few starts, because he doesn't have the crew around him. His numbers actually came out very, very Kirk Cousins-like for last year, but like Kirk Cousins light. Got it. The good, I've got him throwing 604 times, but at just 11.3 yards per completion, which comes out to just over 4,200 yards, but only 24 touchdowns, 12 picks. That's going to make him a streamer, kind of back-end quarterback one. And again, it's going to be frustrating because I think a lot of that is going to be garbage time.
Yeah, I think we're
singing different narratives.
We're singing different. I mean, we're right on the touchdowns. We would have been right on everything else. It's just the attempts. I expect this defense to still be decent enough, especially with the lighter schedule. And you know what the fact is, they could try to lean on Fournette more. It just overall, it's hard to predict garbage time because anything can happen. I mean, like we saw Miami be competitive in a lot more games last year than we expected. And I expect that to be relatively about the same for Jacksonville, as their defense could be good enough to keep them in games, especially early on in the season.
So let's talk Lamar Miller in his first 2 years in Texas. I mean, Leonard Fournette. First off, the guy can't stay healthy. He's had ankle injuries just about every year. He's looked okay to start the season and has completely fallen off. He averaged under 3.5 yards per attempt last season. I've got him missing 3 games, only rushing the ball 237 times, which is still 18.3 a game at under a 4-yard per attempt clip. They haven't done a lot to improve the offensive line. They haven't done a lot to help him. Yes, they've taken people away from around him, but for a back that can't stay healthy, and a team that I expect to be down a lot in an inefficient run game, I don't really see him carrying the ball more than 250 times or being that efficient, and he's never really been a passing game factor.
No, I got him just playing 12 games, 207 rushes, because I think because they've always leaned on him when he's been healthy. Even when he's been banged up, they've leaned on him.
They've tried.
The touchdowns will be what saves them. And speaking of Lamar Miller, I got Miller with more total yards, but obviously touchdowns will lean towards Fournette's way because they tend to really lean on him in the red zone. He was somewhat of a factor in the passing game his rookie season. I think they'll try to do that the same here, as there's not a true receiver that they can lean on and dump off to Fournette. It's a good way to slow down an offense and keep your defense, fresh. So I expect when Fournette's healthy that they're going to lean on him in both and passing game, which has been a part of it since, his rookie season.
I expect them to also. He's not been tremendously efficient in the passing game. Actually, he's been, I think, under 9 yards per attempt or per completion. I've got him at 45 targets, 36 receptions, which is higher than I want to project him. But the fact is, for a team that's historically, at least over the last 5 to 6 years, pass to the running back 21% of the time. They don't really have a pass catcher, which led me to this next really, really ugly thing that I had to do, and that's project Benny Cunningham to get 65 targets because he's the only back there that has any form of pass catching experience.
Uh, I'm just down on this whole running back core. I got Cunningham at 54 targets, but
Yeah, you have to, right? Because you can't see
you
Fournette
do.
doing that much.
When Fournette goes down, Blue has never had more than 24 targets, I think, in a season for him. I got him at just 15.
Rawls is there, but he's always been a between the tackles back.
Rawls will get hurt. I don't even know if Rawls will make the team.
I don't either.
I don't project Rawls because I don't expect anything from Rawls.
No, I didn't. I'm just saying he exists.
Yeah, I know. But this is gonna be ugly for Jacksonville fans again.
Yeah, I'm avoiding the running backs, and I think the only way I'm taking Leonard Fournette is if I can get him 5th round or later, and I'm in desperate need of a running back because I want wide receiver heavy.
I mean, I think he's been a high 3rd, low 4th. So there is a realm of possibility that could happen. I do expect him because his upside. If he plays a full 16 games, that's RB2 easy upside for Fournette, if not higher. So
I mean, it is even at 3.8 yards a carry.
I got him at 3.7.
I got him at 3.9 actually, but still, you get it. He will have 8 to 10 touchdowns. That is gonna at least be nice, but that's exactly what Lamar Miller was his first couple of years in Texas. Yeah. So, moving on to the wide receivers. So, D.D. Westbrook, Keelan Cole, Marquise Lee, Chris Conley, DJ Chark, Terrell Pryor. This group has names and guys that have flashed or have draft pedigree to them, but nobody that's really done it consistently. So how are you projecting this to work out?
So for me, is Westbrook is the guy to own here. If there's a guy to own, he's the guy I've been drafting late in mock drafts and dynasty startups. He's been good since, as he's healthy, he's been good. Foles should be a better quarterback than Blake Bortles. Again, should be, but who knows? Outside of him, if Lee's healthy, I do like Lee underneath, but that does affect Cole. What's going to happen between those two? I don't like Pryor. I don't care about Chris Conley. To me, they're just bodies. The fact that Chark was a 2nd round pick may push him, but it's hard for me to project Chark of anything more than a wide receiver 4 in this offense.
So we can agree then that the 3 to even look at here are D.D. Westbrook, Keelan Cole, Marquise Lee.
Yeah, I mean, it's Westbrook. Cole has flashed. He's flashed in training camp so far. There's been highlights of him making nice catches. Cole's had a problem with drops, though, in his first 2 seasons. So,
yep.
We'll see if that holds up.
So I agree that D.D. Westbrook is the guy to own. I looked at what Nelson Aguilar did with Nick Foles. I do think that Westbrook gets used in the slot, especially if Lee is not healthy to start the season with Chark and if Lee's there, I think they'll obviously kind of split time in that role. But if he's not, a lot of those other guys, Chark and Keelan Cole and Terrell Pryor, project to be outside. So I expect Westbrook in the slot. Nelson Aguilar with Nick Foles was averaging like 8.6 targets per game. And when you look at what Flip did with look, you don't have a Thielen and Diggs on this team, but those guys saw 150 and 150. And you go back to Cleveland in 2015, you had, I think Barnage was still there.
Yeah.
And I forget who the wide receiver was. It wasn't Pryor. It was the year before him. They were both up 125 to 130 targets. So he will use his receivers wherever they may be, however good they may be. So I've got D.D. Westbrook at 124 targets, catching 84 of them for just under 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns. I've got Keelan Cole at 117, catching 68 for 825 and 4. I faded Marquise Lee, and this fades into part of those projections. He's not expected to be ready until training camp. He's traditionally been banged up, so I only have Lee playing 13 games with 87 targets. So, and I don't see a whole lot from Jeff Swaim or, despite the hype, Josh Oliver in their first year, just playing the odds here. Tight ends don't do a whole lot. So I think most of the passing work, especially the garbage time passing work, is going to have to come from the wide receiver core. So if D.D. Westbrook is going late rounds, I am all over that.
Yeah, I think just because of our differences in passing attempts will change the targets amount. I have Lee. I basically have Lee and Cole tied. It just depends on on how they run these guys out. Westbrook has been moved around. Cole's been traditionally slot, but then so has Lee. Chark and Pryor have been, are your traditional outside type of receivers, which lends to Chark having some upside play to him, especially with Nick Foles, who likes to push football downfield. But that's when he's had, guys like Alshon Jeffrey and, Torrey Smith, Zach Ertz, and, that on his team. He doesn't have that here. So for me, it's just waiting to see how this depth chart plays out.
And that's all you really can do here. Is this is going to be a team to watch in training camp and a team to keep an eye on what's coming out of beat reporters, because we don't know how it's going to play out. Again, Keelan Cole's got hype. He's probably the biggest receiver with any form of experience they have, and D.D. Westbrook we know can be a deep threat.
Yeah, I mean, Char's got the size 6'4", 198.
Yeah, but he just hasn't done it yet. That's all I was saying.
Yeah, he's basically Dante Moncrief without any upside right now.
Yep. And then for the tight ends, I'll be completely honest with you. I split the tight end targets almost right down the middle. Projected these guys within 40 yards of each other and within one touchdown of each other, because I really don't know. If good news keeps coming out about Josh Oliver, I'll fade it a bit towards him. But right now, teams traditionally had about 100 tight end targets. I think there was 94 of them last year. So I've got them right at 100 tight end targets for the year, just again split 51-49. So I'm not owning either of them. That's a long way of what I was saying. I'm not owning either of them in redraft.
No, I got him at between Swaim and Oliver. I got him at 72 targets. I don't expect much from this tight end core at all. It just with the other offensive weapons, they don't need to lean on the tight ends.
Nope, they don't. So it'll be interesting to see how this team shakes out, though. Because they are the ones that I probably know least about, that and Tennessee's wide receiver core, which we'll get to after the beer review.
Yep.
Beer review.
All right, what did you think of your tequila barrel wheat with lime? I know wheat's not normally your speed.
The fact that it's aged in tequila barrels, I think, helps it, because there's wheat there. It's very sweet. That line really lends to that. It's very malty. The pour is just a heavier golden color to it. But I wasn't expecting much from this beer, and I've been pleasantly surprised. Just how refreshing it is, even for a barrel age. It sits at 7.5%, so it's nothing to down like crazy, but it's definitely one that I wasn't expecting much for a free beer.
Yep. For me, I had Teddy Bear Kisses by Upland Brewing. This is incredible. First off, there's a bit of alcohol taste at the end, just a little bit of burn because it is Imperial, but the cocoa is all over the place in this one. You get it on the front, a little bit of sweetness from it, then you get kind of that dark chocolate, almost bitterness that lingers. Still a sweet kind of layer of cocoa on my lips even after drinking it. It's a really, really solid Imperial. I wish I'd drank it in the winter, not when it's 90 degrees outside, but it is an incredible beer. So, as always, good job to Upland.
Yeah, that beer is fucking ridiculously good.
Yep. All right. So now we will move on to whichever team I had listed next, which is the Texans in ABC order. So, all right. We know about DeAndre Hopkins. We'll talk about that in a minute. We have to talk about Deshaun Watson. You said you love him and have a man crush on him. I've got him predicted as well to also score very, very highly. What are you seeing out of Deshaun Watson?
So let's just say this. We don't hate players. We hate ADPs, which is why we were down on Deshaun Watson last year, because he was almost where Mahomes was this year right now. Mm-hmm. But this year, I think he's going as the 5th or 6th, maybe even lower than that, in terms of mock drafts right now. I got him at 524 attempts, which is right. I think would be a slight increase to where 16 game paces have been when he's played a full 16. Just shy of 4,400 yards, 29 touchdowns, 10 picks. I do expect that interception rate to slightly increase, but not much. But 4 rushing touchdowns will give him 33 total touchdowns there. There's just a lot to like from him because he scores touchdowns.
How often do you see him running? What do you have him at as far as his rush yards go? Because that is a big part of his game.
I got him at 90 rushes. I think last year he was at 99. So a slight decrease there. I think he's had 5 rushing touchdowns, or he's been on pace for 5 than his last season and a half. So right around that line there, 15 total turnovers. So I don't expect him to be completely safe with the football, but we saw that interception rate dipped down to 1.8 last year, which we expected to not be so low. So a slight decrease in that part, but I love Deshaun Watson this year.
I didn't think it was possible, but I'm even higher than you. I think I got him at a higher completion percentage, honestly. I got him at 536 pass attempts, completing 66.5% of his passes.
Better than you on that one.
12.9 yards per pass completion because if Will Fuller's healthy, that's going to, or plays more than one game, that's going to incredibly help that yards per pass completion. So I got him at 12.9 yards per completion and throwing for just over 4,500 yards, 28 touchdowns to 9 picks. So a little more tepid on the touchdown percentage and on the interception rate. As far as rushing, I'm right there with you. I got him at 91 rush attempts for over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. So I agree. I think that there is an increase in pass attempts coming for Deshaun Watson. I think that we were right last year about the touchdown rate coming back down to earth, but it was still solid. And then you factor in that he can run and does have mobility with his legs and does score with his legs. I think that you're probably going to get a value on him this year. I think that people had a certain expectation for Deshaun Watson last year that he didn't hit because it was unrealistic. He came out and still had a very, very solid year, but I think that turned those same people that were driving his ADP up last year off to him a little bit because they could have had Patrick Mahomes and didn't, and now he's going to be kind of back down in where you're going to at least get a fair shake on Deshaun Watson, and I'd be happy to have that fair shake.
I mean, he didn't even disappoint last year. He still had 26 touchdowns. He's still the QB4, I think, is what he finished at. So, I mean,
just ADP to performance, basically. It's like you said, we don't hate players, we hate ADP, and that's what will turn you off is guy can have a perfectly solid year, but if you drafted him over, say, a Patrick Mahomes who had an outstanding year, it's all about perception.
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes was Mahomes. So the fact that I can get Watson in I think 7th or 8th round is a complete steal just based on where I've seen so far. I haven't scored more points than Andrew Luck.
I believe I do as well. Hold on.
So I had to bump Luck up a little bit. I had my touchdowns off slightly, but Watson is going to be a beast. But so is Luck. I expect them to be the top 3 to go with Mahomes. So Watson is my top 3 QB, potential QB1. It's not too much of a hot take.
No, through the 3 divisions I've done so far, he is currently my QB1. Now, we haven't done the AFC West, so no Patrick Mahomes. We haven't done the NFC North, so there's no Aaron Rodgers in there or anything yet. But Deshaun Watson right now is ahead of Andrew Luck for me, so slightly. It's by like 2 points.
Yeah, it's very close, my points per game.
All right. So enough about Deshaun Watson. The other guy I had listed, DeAndre Hopkins, just real quick. More of the same from him. Where are you expecting him to be at?
Right around the same. 174 targets, 113 receptions, just shy of 1,600 yards, 12 touchdowns.
Yeah, you want to laugh?
Yeah, sure.
175 targets.
Okay.
114 receptions.
Okay.
Just shy of 1,600 yards. 1,572 to be exact. 12 touchdowns.
Yeah, I got him at 1,593 yards. Yeah, we're pretty. Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty.
It's Hopkins, so
pretty chalk for DeAndre Hopkins there.
Yes.
So if that tells you anything that we're projecting him that close, probably going to happen. He was playing hurt last year and still just had an outstanding season.
Yep.
On to more fun stuff. You got Deonta Foreman back at full speed. Incumbent Lamar Miller actually had a decent season last year. 4.5 yards per attempt. I think he had 230-ish carries. Finally did what you were hoping to see from Lamar Miller and did not and actually gave you really, really good value, no matter the fact that it always felt gross starting Lamar Miller because he's Lamar Miller. How do you expect the return of Deontay Foreman? Do you expect that? What are we expecting out of Lamar Miller? Break down the 2 running backs in Texas that are expected to have value.
This was tough because you don't know what to expect from Foreman. He was coming on late before his before his Achilles tear in his rookie season. You barely saw him last year because of the long recovery time. I have the carries being split. I expect them to ease Foreman more into into that traditional first and second down role, with Miller still being the starter, still dominating the targets, and still giving you a Lamar Miller type of season like the ones you saw in Miami. I got him at 197 rushes for Miller, 172 for Foreman, both scoring 4 touchdowns. Miller dominating the targets from 49 to 14 because Foreman's just not a pass catcher. That's not been his game. And just the fact that they don't really use their running backs in the red zone as much as I thought they actually would have. And they like to opt to more of the tight ends, and then obviously Hopkins because it's fucking Hopkins. So a lot of yards for a lot of yards for Miller, not a lot of touchdowns though.
Yep. What do you have Miller at yard wise?
847, 4.3 yards per clip, which I think is right where his average is for his career.
Yep, I had him at 4.5 just based on last season. They didn't do a whole lot to get better or worse. I did fade the attempts down to just over 200, 13.2 per game. Got Foreman at 9.68, so slight edge to Lamar Miller, but that's not even a 60-40 split. I've got him going for 950 yards, 4 touchdowns, and the majority of the passing work, although that's just 44 targets. And 229 yards there. Again, running backs, like you said, not used a lot in the red zone. I think running backs in total for them, I've got them projected to be at, I think, 8 touchdowns between the 2 of them. That's receiving and rushing.
I got him at 9. I got 1 random reception Miller. I think he's had at least 1 every year. He's been in Houston, so I expect that to remain the same. So 5 total touchdowns in total, but just like with you, it's a lot of outside the 20s work. And just I think we're going to see more Foreman. I think they're going to pay off on this 3rd round draft pick.
I think so too, and that's why I've got them so close in their carries per game, basically. Like I said, they're within 3 of each other. So I got Miller going 211 times, Foreman going 155 at 4.4 yards a clip, puts him at 682 yards, 3 touchdowns. Again, most towards the end of the season. I think he does outshine Lamar Miller. And as you mentioned, just 10 receptions, and I have him sneaking in a receiving touchdown because he was actually efficient with the few catches he got because people weren't expecting it. They're crashing the middle on him. All right, moving on to the other 2 wide receivers. You got Will Fuller, who's traditionally been good but can't stay healthy, and Kiki Kuti, who had 55 targets in 7 games but can't stay healthy. So what are we looking at from these 2?
I got him both playing 10 games. I got QT out targeting Will Fuller because I think on pace he would have done it last year. Mm-hmm. They both played 16 games. But I have Fuller doing what Fuller does, and that's dominating the field stretch-wise and after the catch, just being a touchdown machine. Even though I only got him scoring 5 touchdowns, but in 10 games is kind of where he's always been playing traditionally anyways. But his upside is what makes him intriguing. Kuti, if he could also remain healthy, could be a tremendous value as a slot receiver who could see far more targets than just a 75 I have him at in just the 10 games played.
Yep, I've also got QT out targeting Will Fuller. The difference is the games played I have for them. So QT was hurt last year, but it was his first season in the league, so I gave him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was just a rough year. Again, hamstring injuries do tend to creep up, but I've got him playing 14 games just because you don't have that track record of missing time like Will Fuller does. Had him at 107 targets, which is just the pace he was on last year, basically.
Yeah.
I didn't have it as a higher pace. It's just really the pace he was on for the games he's playing. 74 receptions, 784 yards, just 2 touchdowns, so he's going to be a lot more viable in PPR leagues than he will be in half PPR. As for Will Fuller, I have him playing just 12 games, which, again, he's just missed so much time. The touchdowns will be there. I've got him at 4 touchdowns, 528 yards. but just 34 receptions. Again, he's going to be a deep threat. He's going to catch his deep balls. Um, and the touchdown projection for him may be a bit low, but I do like Kiki Kuti is more my style of player because he's more floor, and you also don't necessarily have the injury risk with him. However, if Will Fuller can somehow play a full season, I think that's really going to pay off for you at the right price. So when we do our rankings reveals, after we get through all these projections, kind of know more of what that price is. But if I had to take a guess right now, it's going to be kind of your later single-digit rounds for me.
Yeah, like I think for me, it's just I was a little bit shocked to see how many games QT didn't play. I think he only played 6 last year.
6 or 7.
Just speaks to the
He had
to the issue that hamstring injuries can actually give to the players, which is why I'm a little scared about AJ Brown, but more on him later.
Yeah.
But just like we know how this receiving core will likely play out. It's just how many games will Fuller and Kuti actually play to see, because we're pretty much on pace for the right targets. I only got them playing 10 games apiece, which is why I think which is obviously why my numbers are
lower. Yep.
So, but the points per game is where it matters for me, because all three of them are, especially Hopkins, but Fuller and Kuti are both almost 11 points per game, which is great for receivers.
Yep. I try not to project guys at less than, guys that are banged up and missed games here or there. I try not to project them at anything less than 12, 10 in extreme cases. So, and that's just because injuries are so hard to project. I don't want to take away from my perception of a player by trying to predict injuries. I mean, repeated things like Will Fuller's issues are one thing, but, one season with Kiki Kuti is a little different for me.
Which is why I do points per game from for a lot of my bases rankings. So
yeah, I'm different. I will, but I'll do more of a bust percentage, boom percentage, consistency percentage than I will PPG. Just because you could have a guy like Will Fuller who gives you 20 and 30 point games, and that's going to drive up his average. I think we've talked about this before on the show.
Yeah,
and the different ways to do it. Moving on to the tight ends, I don't expect anything from Jordan Thomas or Kahale Waring in redraft. Obviously, I like Waring as a dynasty prospect. Do you think Jordan Thomas has the edge just because he's been in the offense? He did flash a little bit last year. Neither one of them are fantasy relevant to me as far as redraft goes.
No, I think it's between Thomas and Atkins. Just because Atkins is fair, it's far more athletic than what Thomas is, but Thomas got the touchdown edge because of those a couple of random games. But this is going to be just a disastrous and just gross tight end core to try to figure out. I got Thomas slightly edging Atkins in that regard. Both are going to receive 3 touchdowns apiece because Watson likes to spread the football out in that part. Waring will flash, but he's still a very raw prospect. He didn't play football till his senior year, which we talked about during our rookie draft process. So we'll get more into that. This is going to be a tight end group to avoid. But as you saw, we like Waring in dynasty leagues, especially rookie drafts.
Yeah, but I just didn't put Akins on there because he was drafted as more of a blocker. So, it's just a dart throw, and we can not going to sit here and quibble over who the second tight end is when not even one of them is going to be relevant. So,
no.
All right, moving on to the Tennessee Titans. I have nobody here as a must-own. Not a one.
I could maybe put Derrick Henry.
Make a case. I was just going to say that.
Maybe.
Could possibly make a case for Derrick Henry, and probably will here in a minute, but Derrick Henry has burned anybody that's believed in Derrick Henry so many times. I'm not about that to do to any of you.
No. God, no.
So let's start here. Does Marcus Mariota hang on to his job, or do we see Ryan Tannehill at some point?
It's hard for me to predict if that's going to happen, because I think they're going to roll with Mariota if he's healthy. Because when he's been actually fully healthy, he's looked good. His first 2 seasons in the NFL, over a 5% touchdown rate. And I think a relatively low interception rate. He's been banged up so much. And when you try to factor that into your projections and the fact that I think this team will run the football more to protect their quarterback, I don't like anybody here. I want Tannehill to be the starter because I think that'll bode well for the receivers more.
It will.
But as for Mariota himself, I got him playing 14 games. I don't think he'll lose his job to poor play. It's him getting hurt. Tannehill's a far better quarterback than what Blaine Gabbert was or what Clipboard Jesus was a couple of years ago. So if Mariota does get hurt, I don't think they'll rush him back. But as we said before, it's hard to project injuries when you're doing your own projections.
Yep. As for me, I went the other way. I do think that Mariota loses his job due to injury or poor performance, and that's mostly because I see the Titans getting out to a tremendously slow start. Actually, I have them losing their first 4. So, and this is a team that surprised last year too, and it felt ugly. And I finally figured out why when I looked at what they did last year. They ran more than they passed, which in today's NFL, 1 is not a recipe to win, even though they somehow did it. But 2 is just a bit miffing to me that you can have 20 more rush attempts than pass attempts and still have a not horrendous record the way the NFL's done today. I do think Ryan Tannehill, like you, is better for the receiving game. I'm staying away from this until Tannehill potentially takes over, and then I need to see it. I think he could be a streamer if that happens, but it's not something you go out and draft. Even in Superflex, Tannehill's no more than a backup. Obviously, Mariota ahead of him because he is the incumbent and does have to lose his job. But I just look at Mariota's stats to what Tannehill's done and look at their peripherals and how they've been as a passer and how they've been as a quarterback. And I think if they get out to a slow start, that it's going to be hard to not give it to Tannehill, especially if there is a Mariota injury, which there's prone to be, and he comes in and plays well.
Yeah, like for Mariota, he gets banged up a lot, but he plays a lot of games. He's only missed 2 games in most of his, I think 4 seasons he's played. It's just that he's always banged up. It's just that he's had more lingering, injuries as to last year. If Tannehill was a backup last year, we would have saw far less of Mariota instead of playing Gabbert, who's fucking garbage. So I think the numbers are relatively the same for me had we projected them out 16 games. I don't think they'll lose much. I think the receivers will get a bump with Tannehill, but Mariota has his own way of being fantasy relevant through his running game. And
I think Tannehill passes more, which is going to show up in my projections here a little bit later because of how I projected Tannehill to play 12 and Mariota to only get 4 or 5.
Wow. Yeah, we are completely opposite on that, which is...
It's good.
Fair.
It's 2 different schools of thinking. Buy into whichever one you want to. Yeah, 2 different schools of thinking. Buy into whichever one you want to because we agree on a whole lot. So when we disagree this wildly, it gets interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So before we talk about the passing game where those differences are going to show up, we need to talk about the running game a little bit. Deion Lewis came out great last year. Then he fell off a cliff. Derrick Henry's production came mostly in a couple into season games. And Team Teflon, because he can't seem to stick anywhere, Jeremy McNichols is in camp for whatever that's worth. So
I did not project Jeremy McNichols.
I did not project Jeremy McNichols also. I just like to get some of our old draft crushes a shout out.
I know. So for me, here's the thing. They get a new offensive coordinator again, which does not bode well for quarterbacks, as we've seen before. So it's hard to know what we expect from this running back core. The fact that Derrick Henry, we always make jokes about him showing up towards the end of the season when last year was the only time that it actually happened. The hype gets increased because there's always somebody, there's a who is on its way out. So we get hyped about Henry at that point. But last year was the first time that he actually produced late into the season going into next year as we try to figure out, if he's going to be someone of worth to own. And for me, I think he is because I do kind of buy into them run the football more. They have a decent defense when they're healthy, and they're going to try to keep games close and not let Mariota run the football a bunch or let Tannehill kind of throw the football a shit ton. So this is going to be a heavy Derrick Henry offense. I got him at 263 rushes, just shy of 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns. Does not get involved in the passing game, but he will see career highs with 24 targets and 19 receptions. Henry is an RB2 if they stick to their, if they stick to wanting to run him to the ground.
Yeah, and they did run more than they passed, so I'm also kind of there with Derrick Henry. I've got him at 245 rush attempts, and again, this shows up in projections. With Mariota, it is going to be more of a running team. I expect the defense to fall off a bit because they have some older pieces that I don't think that you got guys in their mid to late 30s that are going to continue to produce at the level that they did last year, despite playing for a defensive-minded coach. So 245 rush attempts for Derrick Henry, just over 1,100 yards, 13 touchdowns because he does excel there.
Yes.
18 targets, 15 receptions for 130 yards and no touchdowns there. Again, running back 2 territory with the touchdowns potentially driving him up. He did go out and have a really decent season overall last year. It was just slow to start. You look at the peripherals, though, his juke rate, his explosive run rate, a lot better than you might think to make you think, which makes me think that, it is finally sustainable. That's not to say that the next guy, Dion Lewis, doesn't have a role, though.
He does, and it's not even that bad of a role. It's just that I think they're going to lean on Henry more. So I've got Lewis kind of dipping a little bit in terms of his overall touches. 141 rushes because I do expect this offense to run the ball again a lot. 60 targets, so a little bit less than last year. 49 catches and a couple touchdowns. I expect him to be a bye week fill-in, especially if Henry gets off to a slow start like he did last year. I don't expect a lot from this offense, so I don't expect a lot of touchdowns in general.
So where we differ, I think, is the receiving game, and again, that comes into highly projected the quarterbacks. I've got Dion Lewis at 153 rushes and 643 yards, 1 touchdown because that's not really his game. It's the receiving game where I have him excelling a bit. 71 targets, 63 receptions because he always has had an insanely high catch rate.
Yep.
Just over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. He will have some value as a flex play depending on matchup. Not nearly as safe as Derrick Henry is, though. I think unlike last year, it's not whose it's going to be. I feel a lot better about who it's going to be. It's just what's the breakdown going to be.
Yeah, like it's just can this offense produce touchdowns? I'm not as high on on this offense producing that from that point. I only got 8 rushing touchdowns for Derrick Henry because of it. And the fact it's been so sporadic. He's had 5 touchdowns his first 2 years and 12 last year. As for Dion Lewis, I expect him to he had 1 rushing touchdown last year, and most times he gets between 2 and 3. So I expect that to kind of right itself in that regard. So his running back core is not as bad as we think it is. It's just we know a little bit more than last year, which is good.
Yep. All right, let's talk wide receivers. Corey Davis, A.J. Brown, Adam Humphries. Corey Davis checked in at over 100 targets last season. A.J. Brown's brought in as a high-round draft pick, and Adam Humphries was signed out of free agency. So go ahead and give your best shot at breaking this one down, and this is where I think we're going to differ a decent amount.
Corey Davis for sure. 26.4% target share last year.
Without Delaney Walker.
Rookie season. So I do expect that to remain relatively the same as the only receiver with over 100 targets. Got him at 114, 67 receptions and 6 touchdowns, just shy of 900 yards receiving. So I think he'll be fine for a mid to low 2 with upside to it if Tannehill is the starter for longer than Mariota. Where things I think will completely differ is the 2, 3, and 4. Humphries won't see the 85 plus targets he's seen the last 3 seasons. This is not the same offense that is Tampa Bay's. I don't expect this team to throw a lot. So 69 targets for him, 59 for Taywan Taylor, because I think Taywan will finally find his groove on the outside. It's not enough to actually produce because this is just a bad offense. Braun will only play about 10 games because he's now dealing with hamstring issues.
All right. I had Corey Davis predicted at 115 targets, 962 yards, 6 touchdowns, solid wide receiver 2 territory in the middle range of that. And again, it's just he saw over 100 targets last year. You alluded to the target volume. Yes, Delaney Walker is back, but he is the guy because even though Delaney Walker is back, Rashard Matthews is not there. And so I expect that target volume from yesteryear basically to go towards Corey Davis with him being the veteran in this offense. You look at Adam Humphries. Basically what I did for Humphries is I extrapolated him at Taywan Taylor plus a little bit. They did go out and spend for him. Unlike you, I do have him over 85 targets, barely, 87. So it's a fall off from last year still, but it is closer in line to his career norms. 684 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's just an Adam Humphries season. Then I actually projected pretty much just swap out Taywan Taylor for A.J. Brown, and that's essentially what I've got there.
Yeah.
It's whoever the third is probably not ownable, basically.
I don't think anybody. I mean, Humphreys will always give you those bye week flex fill-ins.
That's why I will never say Humphreys is not ownable, but
Yeah.
you know how I feel about him.
He's always a guy that you can pick up on the waivers and flex out and feel okay with getting that 8 to 10 points in PPR leagues. This is not a Tampa Bay offense. They will not throw the football as much, is why I'm a little more concerned on him as being that type of guy. What I feel more confident is that Davis, as we just mentioned, should be the guy to own here. Though he'll give you his boom bust weeks because this is also the Tennessee offense, so we can't get too happy about it.
Yep, Davis is the only guy that I want to own with any form of draft capital. Again, I like to have Adam Humphries on my roster because of what you just mentioned, that I don't have to worry about trying to claim him on waivers. I like to at least put one type of solid bye week or injury fill-in on my roster like that. So you've been listening to the show for the last 3 years. You've heard me talk about Adam Humphries and why I like to have him around a lot. Moving on to the tight ends, Delaney Walker will be back. Johnny Smith also back. Delaney Walker typically been a target eater when he's been there. What do you have the tight ends doing?
So this is not the tight end 1 days of Delaney Walker. Again, just based on projections and the I think it's almost 100 less pass attempts between these two guys. I got Walker with 76 targets, 48 receptions, 5 touchdowns, just shy of 600 yards. He'll be on pace for what he normally does. It just will be less because of his less targets. He'll be used in the red zone because I do have Mariota playing far more games than Tannehill, and he likes to go his way more. But just with this being a more of a run focus offense, Walker just won't see the 100+ targets that he's normally have seen the last 4 healthy seasons for him. I also only have him playing 15 games because he's played 15 games more than he's played 16, which is a little bit weird to me.
Yeah, for Delaney Walker, I do expect, especially if Mariota's in there, actually, because of the comfort level, I do expect Delaney Walker to not hit the same highs he hit, but to still be relatively decent. I mean, this is a team that even last year targeted the tight end, well, it was only 89 times, but still, and that was without Johnny Smith most of the season and without Delaney Walker most of the season. So, I mean, it's got to go to somebody. I've got Delaney Walker having 100 targets, catching 62 balls, just over 714 yards, 4 touchdowns. Not the insane numbers we've seen out of him, but not his worst numbers either. Johnny Smith is where I faded unless there's an injury to Walker, who we've expected to retire for about the last 3 years now. I've got him at just 34 targets.
Yeah, he's just never been the guy to eclipse Walker. We thought it would happen this season, but with Walker coming back, I think we'll see them more. I just don't think I don't expect this passing offense to produce a whole lot. So I had to fade the numbers slightly.
Yeah. Well, and again, that goes back to quarterback perception and what we think is going to happen. I did fade the pass attempts up because I don't think in today's NFL, if they already go back-to-back seasons running more than they pass, I don't think there's any way that is a successful formula, especially since I do have them projected to lose more than they win. So, seems like a good segue. Let's talk about records. We both have the Colts winning the division. I have them being a bit more dominant than you do at 13-3 versus your 11-5. Texans are the other place we differ. You got them at 10-6. I've got them at 8-8. I could really see them going either way. Deshaun Watson's going to be good. My concern with Houston comes in is Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins enough to carry them without any real star power and health concerns at other positions. J.J. Watt hasn't been healthy for a few years. The defense is not necessarily what I would consider dominant, especially in the secondary. So I've got the Texans as a 500 team. You've got them at 10-6. I think either one could be equally realistic.
Yep.
We don't disagree at all on the Titans or the Jaguars, 6-10 and 5-11.
Yeah, they're going to be not great. Their defense will win them some games. We'll keep in games long enough to win some games they may not should have won.
Yep. That's exactly how I got it. All right, that's all we got for you this week. We will be back next week with the NFC South as we preview some more fun teams. Saints and Falcons especially will appear to be incredibly fun. Carolina less so because it's me and I have to talk about Carolina. And Tampa Bay will be a blast too. I think the NFC South is one of the best divisions in football. They're going to have some of the most high-flying offenses in football. That is an episode you do not want to miss because there's going to be a lot of fantasy football relevance coming out of that episode.
I completely agree.
All right. Just a reminder, you can follow the show at Beerfield FF, Facebook, Twitter, Untapped. That was the third one. Beerfield Fantasy Football on Facebook and YouTube. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe, hit the like button. You can donate money to help St. Jude's and see me potentially get put through a table. We have a $500 goal to make that happen. That is gofundme.com/hopper-gus-through-a-table-4-St. Jude. There's a dash in there someplace. The link will be tweeted out on our Twitter throughout the week. It'll be in the description of the YouTube videos. We'll be pumping that for the next 3 weeks. Please, 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 if you have $1 to spare, go help the kids out to see me get driven through a table, especially if you disagree with any of my takes. If there's any Cowboys fans listening, go back and listen to the NFC East preview, and I'm sure you'll want to see that happen.
Pretty much.
All right. I am at Hot BFF with 2 P's. He is at Theory BFF with 2 F's and a B and a THURY. Any parting words?
No, I think you covered them all.
All right. Have a good week, y'all. We will see you next week on Beerfield Fantasy Football.
Peace.